While under her oppressive mother's control, a desperate teenager undergoes barbaric aesthetic surgery in hopes of capturing the eye of a handsome and wealthy prince. Inside the stagecoach, the smitten Elvira imagines sharing a romantic moment with the handsome Prince Julian as they frolic in the meadow. Suddenly, her mother Rebekka slaps her awake, revealing that it was a dream. The teenager smiles as she stares at the book on her lap, entitled Prince Julian's Most Beautiful Poems. Soon, they transfer onto a different stagecoach and continue the journey towards the estate of the woman's new lover. Outside the manor, Otto and his beautiful daughter Agnes welcome Rebekka and her children, Elvira and Alma. The pretty blonde smiles at her soon-to-be stepsister, and the bashful teen tries to return the gesture while hiding the braces on her teeth. After the wedding, Agnes takes Elvira on a house tour and introduces her to Isak, the stableman. From the blonde's bedroom window, the teen spots the royal castle and shares her dreams of marrying the prince one day. During supper, Otto playfully throws a handful of wedding cake at Elvira, even after his daughter tells him to behave. Suddenly, the man's eyes widen in fright, and after coughing up some blood, his lifeless body collapses face first onto the table. Days later, the teen hears her grieving stepsister crying in her room, so she brings her some chocolate, hoping it might cheer her up. Agnes politely asks Elvira to leave the room, so the latter shares that when her father died, her mother slept all the time, but that the heavy feeling of grief eventually passed. However, the blonde takes offense to her comparing their situations, pointing out that her father hasn't even been buried yet, but the family has already settled into the manor. She adds that if it weren't for Rebekka's money, Otto would have never let them into his life. At first, Elvira seems perplexed by the statement since she knows her mother isn't wealthy, eventually realizing that the man was penniless as well. The worried teen runs across the house to inform her mother that Otto had no money, but she finds that the debt collectors have already arrived to confiscate all the cattle and tillable land. After the men leave, Rebekka falls to the floor, and the daughter immediately comforts her. Elvira assures the woman that they'll find a solution to their problem, but the latter counters that it won't be easy to find a rich man willing to marry a middle-aged widow with 2 daughters. The teen says she could marry a wealthy man, but Rebekka coldly says she isn't pretty enough to catch the prince's eye. Later, the self-conscious daughter sits in front of the mirror, pondering her mother's hurtful words as she squeezes a pimple. Meanwhile, Agnes lies next to Otto's lifeless body, which is still displayed in one of the rooms of the house, since the family doesn't have the monetary means for a funeral. Then, the blonde prays to a portrait of her late mother, and asks that she not suffer such a bleak fate. Seconds later, she spots a white dove on the windowsill, and wonders if the bird's arrival is a good sign. Hours later, Elvira and Agnes accept invitations from the royal messenger, informing them that Prince Julian will be choosing his chaste bride during a ball in the next 4 months. Soon, Rebekka takes her daughter to Dr. Esthétique, who says that he can easily remove the braces on her teeth, but he'll have to make drastic changes to her nose. The man also suggests handmade eyelash extensions, but the mother says removing the braces and nose enhancement will have to suffice for now. When the doctor states he'll only start the procedure once he receives the payment, Rebekka confidently says she'll double the bill after the ball. Concurrently, Alma peers into the operating room and sees a nurse wiping off a disturbing amount of blood from the floor. Later, after Dr. Esthétique removes the braces using pliers, the mother chooses the nose shape she'd like her daughter to have from the illustrated options in a brochure. As Alma watches in horror, Elvira screams in pain as the man uses a small hammer and chisel to augment her nose. To make sure it heals in the shape that the woman chose, the teen has to wear a metal contraption on her nose at all times. Soon, Rebekka enrolls her daughter in finishing school, where Miss Sophie tells the students that they'll be performing a dance to open the ball. During the dance class, Madame Vanya orders the awkward Elvira to move to the back row and instructs Agnes to take her place in front. That evening, the teen notices that everyone else at the table got a proper meal for dinner, while she's only given a bowl of water and lemon slices. Moments later, Agnes tells Rebekka that she's chosen a date for the funeral, but the woman says they can't afford it right now, and they'll have the ceremony after Elvira gets married. The blonde counters that she spent money on everything else except her late husband's funeral. Instead of answering her question, Rebekka says she thinks Agnes should give her stepsisters some of the dresses from her closet, prompting the annoyed lady to storm out of the dining room. Later that night, the grieving daughter enters the room where Otto's body is, and to her horror, finds that flies have already flocked to the corpse. One day, the surprised teen sees her name in the short list of finishing school students chosen for the dance number at the ball. In her excitement, Elvira imagines herself as a blonde wearing a beautiful ball gown and Prince Julian carrying her in his arms. That afternoon, Madame Vanya asks the teen to perform the dance in front of the other students. However, instead of praising her, the woman reveals that the only reason her name was on the list was because Rebekka paid her off. After the embarrassed Elvira returns to the back row, Madame Vanya chooses Agnes and 2 other students to lead the dance. That night, the teen tries on one of her stepsister's dresses, and the maid says it won't fit. So, Rebekka tells the woman to do whatever it takes to make sure that her daughter fits in the garment. Once she's all alone, Elvira stares at her clothless body in the mirror and snacks on the pastry she hid in a drawer. The next day, she meets privately with Miss Sophie and confides her insecurities about being unattractive and overweight. So, the woman takes a look at her new nose and says she's changing her outside appearance to match her inner beauty, eliciting a grateful smile from the shy student. Moments later, Miss Sophie says she has something for the teen, hands her a locket, and says it's what's inside that counts. That afternoon, Elvira opens the locket and shows her sister the tapeworm egg inside. She explains that she'll ingest the egg so that no matter how much she eats, she'll still lose weight. The teen adds that once she's married to the prince, she'll simply drink the antidote to get rid of the tapeworm. Appalled, Alma chastises her sister for always doing whatever their mother says, but the latter clarifies that Rebekka doesn't know about the egg and asks her sibling to keep her secret. Meanwhile, Agnes arrives at the stable, and after Isak helps her off the horse, they hold each other close. Then, the pair share a passionate kiss, revealing that they've been in a secret relationship for a while. When the blonde states that she needs to marry the prince, the stableman asks if she no longer loves him. So, Agnes clarifies that she'll never love anyone else but Isak, implying that she only wants to marry the prince for his money. Concurrently, Elvira opens the locket and sees the wriggling baby tapeworm inside the translucent egg. After she ingests it, she hears the voices of 3 men nearby, so she hides behind a tree and realizes that one of them is Prince Julian. When his friends tease that he should do the deed with the unattractive teen, the monarch rudely states that he'd never make love to someone like her. Insulted, Elvira storms off, but as she continues sneaking a peek at the prince, she imagines sharing a romantic moment with him in the forest. That night, the teen hears noises coming from the stable and catches Agnes and Isak doing the deed. The next day, Rebekka admonishes her stepdaughter for sleeping with the stableman and orders the maids to put the blonde to work. Later, the woman chases off Isak by throwing rocks at him and telling him to leave the estate for good. 3 months later, Alma has taken on the responsibility of caring for the horses, and Agnes has become the family's servant. Meanwhile, Rebekka finally removes the metal contraption on Elvira's face and expresses her delight at her daughter's new nose. That afternoon, the nurses strap the teen down to a chair, and Dr. Esthétique sews fake lashes onto her eyelids. That night, Elvira, who still has bandages over her eyes, has trouble sleeping due to the rumbling in her stomach. Concurrently, Alma wakes up in the middle of the night because she finally has her time of the month for the first time in her life. Eventually, the teen finds her way to the kitchen where she removes the bandages over her eyes to try and search for food. Suddenly, Agnes appears because she thinks there's an intruder, but when she realizes that it's just her famished stepsister, she gives her a few slices of cake to eat. In finishing school, Miss Sophie tells Madame Vanya that because Agnes is still obsessing over her late father, she should choose someone else to take the student's place in the dance. To Elvira's delight, the strict older woman chooses her to take her stepsister's place in the performance. That night, the teen calls Agnes Cinderella and orders her to brush her hair, but the latter points out that she's been losing a lot of hair lately, much to the former's horror. Later, the dressmaker arrives at the manor and presents Elvira with the garment she is to wear for the ball. The creepy man immediately notices Agnes's beauty and touches her inappropriately, prompting the blonde to push him away. When standing in front of the mirror, the dressmaker points out that the teen looks unwell and that her hair is falling out. To ease the mother's worry, the man tells her that they can cover it up with a blonde wig. Later that night, while Elvira sneaks food to her room, she sits on the stairs and hears Rebekka doing the deed with the dressmaker, revealing that the mother used her own body as payment for the expensive garment. In the hallway, Agnes carries a gown and tells the teen that they can't stop her from attending the ball. In a fit of rage, Elvira grabs the garment and tears it up, and Rebekka appears to defuse the situation. After the blonde storms off, the daughter says Agnes plans on attending the ball, so the mother assures her that even if she wants to, she no longer has anything to wear. Later, the grieving daughter cries next to her father's decaying remains, but unbeknownst to her, silkworms have begun repairing the gown. Suddenly, a bright light shines from a window, and her late mother appears to tell her that her shoes are in her pocket, and that she has to come home before midnight, because the stagecoach will turn back into a pumpkin. The next day, Rebekka helps her daughter dress for the ball, covers her thinning hair with the wig, and mentions how beautiful she is. During the ball, the master of ceremonies announces the arrival of each eligible lady, as well as details about her life, such as her height, number of siblings, and hobbies. To catch everyone's attention, Rebekka has Elvira pretend like she's a puppy as she goes around the room while the herald announces her arrival. While the guests are immediately smitten with the lovely teen, Prince Julian seems bored and shows no interest. Later, as the group prepares for their dance number, the teen belches and feels the rumbling in her stomach. During the performance, Elvira stares intently at the monarch and imagines that he only has eyes for her. After she changes back to her gown, she reunites with her mother, who excitedly points out all the eligible bachelors queuing to dance with her. Suddenly, the master of ceremonies announces that Prince Julian is about to open the ball with a dance. To Elvira's pleasant surprise, the monarch chooses to dance with her amongst all the ladies invited to the ball. However, the moment gets cut short when a mystery woman wearing a veil enters the room and immediately steals the prince's attention. Rebekka tries to get her daughter to dance with another nobleman, but the heartbroken teen feels the rumbling in her stomach and runs out of the ballroom. Then, she runs to the dressing room and throws up tapeworm eggs on the floor, revealing that the creature has been reproducing inside her for months. Moments later, the furious mother appears and tells her to pull herself together, because there are other men at the party who are eager to meet her. As the teen dances with several noblemen, she continues watching the prince and the mystery lady. At the end of the song, the veil falls from the woman's face, and Elvira realizes that it was Agnes all along. Suddenly, the clock strikes 12, prompting the blonde to run out of the room so she can make it home before the stagecoach turns back into a pumpkin. Moments later, Prince Julian shows the guests the lone white shoe the woman left behind and says that whoever fits it is the person he's going to marry. When she arrives home, Elvira steps out of the carriage and sees a pumpkin outside the manor. Because she knows her stepsister has the other shoe, the teen attacks her with a meat cleaver and demands that she hand the shoe over. However, when Elvira puts it on, she realizes that the shoe is much too small to fit her foot. Desperate to win over Prince Julian's affection whatever means necessary, the teen decides to use the cleaver to cut off her toes. Her screams alert Alma and Rebekka, the former of whom immediately ties a tourniquet around her sister's leg to stop the bleeding. Meanwhile, the mother sees her daughter's toes barely hanging onto her feet, the bloody blade on the floor, and the tiny white shoe on the carpet, quickly realizing what her child is trying to do. Elvira begs her mother to help her because she needs to fit the shoe so she can marry the prince. So, the woman feeds her daughter several tablespoons of sedative, and despite Alma's protests, finishes severing all 10 toes. In her deep sleep, the teen dreams of Prince Julian arriving at the manor, slipping the shoe on her foot, and declaring that he has finally found his beloved. The next day, Elvira hears the trumpets announcing the prince's arrival, but in her hurry, she falls off the bed and down a flight of stairs, breaking her nose and chipping a tooth. Despite her efforts, Agnes and the prince are reunited, and they share a passionate kiss outside the manor. Moments later, Alma helps her hapless sister take the antidote for the tapeworm. Soon, the medication takes effect, and the cestode finally emerges from her mouth. Then, the sister grabs the tapeworm and pulls on it until its entire body comes out. Later, While Rebekka's busy entertaining a wealthy suitor, Alma grabs jewelry from the dresser. Then, she helps Elvira descend the front steps of the manor using her hands so they can finally run away from home, far from their mother's oppressive control. As the pair ride away to freedom on horseback, two crows feast on the dead tapeworm in the yard.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.